Hey everyone, George here. I hope everyone's good out there. I just wanted to sit down real quick and have a quick conversation with you about a very fun, monster-filled horror movie or horror comedy from the 80s. I want to talk to you about the 1988 horror film Waxwork. This film was written and directed by Anthony Hickox. He also directed the sequel to this movie as well, which is called Waxwork 2: Lost in Time. He also directed Hellraiser 3 and Warlock 2: The Armageddon. The film stars Zach Galligan, who you will absolutely know from Gremlins and Gremlins 2. The film also stars Deborah Foreman. David Warner is also in this film, as well as Patrick Macnee. Real quick, before I get started, I am going to spoil this movie from beginning to end. I understand that this movie was made in 1988, but some of you may have never seen this movie, because I don't think this movie's as huge, as it's obviously not as huge as the Friday the 13th movies, or Nightmare on Elm Street movies, or some of these other movies that came out of the 80s. But it's a nice, fun little movie, and I have a lot I'd like to talk about with this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, shut this video off, go watch the movie, come back, sit down, and let's have a chat about it, because it's a fun, little, smart horror film. With that out of the way, let me tell you what this movie is about. The film follows a group of college students who visit a mysterious waxwork, only to discover that each wax scene in this museum is a portal to a horror movie universe. Crossing the velvet rope into any exhibit teleports them into these horror movie scenes. When the college students visit this waxwork and two never come out, the remaining friends try to figure out what is going on with this mysterious waxwork. So after these two friends disappear, what follows for the rest of the movie is what's actually quite cool about this movie is it doesn't really go in the direction you expect. You expect it then to follow the other two people and they're staying in the waxwork and they're encountering all this stuff. But no, they leave the wax museum. You actually think that they wouldn't be allowed to leave, but it's perfectly fine for them to leave. They leave. They think that their two friends already left. They realize they never went home that night, and they start getting concerned. And so basically the main character, Mark, goes to the police station, files a report. He ends up talking to a detective there who is down and out, jaded with life, completely exhausted detective. He doesn't take the kids seriously. He's like, I am too busy. There are like people missing in town, and you're telling me that you have two friends who are missing. And he's like, yeah, my two friends are missing. And he's like, okay, fine. So basically, this detective and Mark, the main character, go back to the wax museum. And when they're there, they go walk around. And then you find out later on, a scene after them leaving, the detective is sitting down looking at all the photos of the missing people. He's like, oh my God, life, sometimes this happens. And he starts realizing that the people that are missing are the same people he saw in the wax museum, the statues. And he realizes something is up, and he decides to go to the waxwork and find out what's going on. And when this detective enters the waxwork, he then goes into the mummy scene, and then you are then gifted, as an audience, gifted to this rather silly but fun mummy sequence, where it's basically him and this other guy and this other woman are excavating this mummy tomb, and they encounter a mummy, and they combat it, and ultimately he loses, and he gets trapped in that mummy scene, and he is dead. And the thing is, when Mark was at the waxwork with the detective, for the first time in the entire movie, he actually sees the owner of the waxwork, and he feels like he recognizes that face from somewhere. And so what he does is, he takes the character Sarah, who is the other survivor, the other person who didn't die at the waxwork that night. He goes back to his attic in his house and goes through his grandfather's old stuff because he knows he's seen that from somewhere. And when he's rummaging through his grandfather's stuff, he finds a newspaper that talks about the murder and robbery of his grandfather. In that article is the face of the man who runs the Waxwork. And so he's rather confused, and so he then goes to his godfather. And his godfather is played by Patrick Macnee, and Patrick Macnee basically explains the whole thing. He says there are 18 evil entities in the world. Basically, each wax scene is this realm for these evils. And this guy is performing a ritual, a blood ritual, or a blood sacrifice to each scene. And when he completes it and gets all 18 blood sacrifices in each horror movie realm, basically these wax sculptures come to life. And it'll basically trigger end times, and it'll mean the end of the world. And Mark's godfather then tells him the only way to stop all this from happening is to burn everything down. And so he leaves to go do so. And when they leave, Patrick Macnee gets on his phone and basically is like, "Avengers, assemble!" He doesn't actually say Avengers, assemble, but he's basically just like, "Oh, we got to get our people. It's beginning." That's basically what happens. And so then Mark and Sarah then go back to the Waxwork with plans to destroy it. So they're there at the Waxwork. Sarah gets drawn in to the Marquis de Sade exhibit. The main character, Mark, is pushed into the zombie exhibit. And so Mark is in the Night of the Living Dead realm, right? He's with these bunch of zombies, and it's really cool. It's shot in black and white, and it's obviously reminiscent of Night of the Living Dead. And he's stuck, and he can't get out, and he doesn't know where to go, and all these zombies are closing in on him. And he comes up with this kind of the crazy idea that if I don't believe in these zombies, they cannot get me. And actually, he was right. They can't get him. So he ends up leaving the realm, and he runs to the Marquis de Sade realm, enters that realm, and then basically goes up to Marquis de Sade. And Marquis de Sade grabs an old 18th century rifle and was like, "Hey, you, get away from this girl." And he's like, "I don't believe in you. I don't believe in you, Marquis de Sade. You're not real. But you right here, standing in front of me, this is not real. You can't hurt me, Marquis de Sade. Go ahead, Marquis de Sade. I dare you." And he goes like this. He's Marquis de Sade, go ahead. Take your best shot. Are you chicken, Marquis de Sade? I think you're chicken. And so Marquis de Sade's like, I'll show you. And he pulls the trigger. The bullet actually just goes through Mark, just passes through him. Marquis de Sade is all upset, and everyone's like, oh my gosh. Everyone's shook by what's happening here. Marquis de Sade then tries to hit Mark, and he's incapable of actually hitting him. He just passes through him. Mark is like a phantom. He can't be touched by anything in this realm, and everyone's kind of freaking like, oh my God. Oh my God. And then the character Sarah basically realizes what's going on, and Mark tells Sarah, this is not real. All you have to do is understand that this is not real, and you could just get up and leave this realm. And she does so. So then what happens is when they leave the Marquis de Sade realm, they are quickly grabbed by the people at the Waxwork. Their mouths are covered. They are taken away to be hidden, while two other friends that were originally of this group in the beginning of the movie, but didn't want to enter the Waxwork in the beginning, they show up. They are then put into those realms, and one character dies in the zombie one, and the other character dies in the Marquis de Sade realm, and then thus completes the ritual. All 18 blood rituals are complete, and all the monsters come to life. And it is the end times. And the two characters are freaking out, but it's okay. Basically, Patrick Macnee and an army of old gentlemen, including Jenkins, who was Mark's butler in the beginning of the movie. Jenkins shows up as well with Patrick Macnee, and they fight all the monsters. There's this giant scene where all this hell breaks loose, and there are monsters and people fighting. And Patrick Macnee, who is a character that's in a wheelchair in the movie, when he shows up, he is actually in an armored wheelchair. His his wheelchair is like, I don't know, it looks like it's a tank. It has like weird spike things on the back. It's got like a shield in the front, and he's wheeling around fighting monsters. You have like snake people coming up, you have vampires, you have werewolves, you have all sorts of monsters running around. And that's the other thing too, is with this movie, the sets and the creature effects are actually pretty cool. But the fight choreography in this movie is so bad that I just don't understand how all these people are able to fight and kill these monsters. Not saying like every single human survives and all the monsters die. Some people die along the way, but the fight choreography, I just don't understand how a hit is thrown in this movie. Okay, it's complete pandemonium in the Waxwork. There are monsters and people just fighting each other. And it's funny, Mark encounters China, the girl that he was into in the beginning of the movie. She was the second friend to die, and basically she was seducing him. And she ends up getting stabbed with a stake and ends up dying at the hands of Jenkins, Mark's butler. Basically, Mark's butler, Jenkins, saves his life. Okay? They go on fighting. He gets into a fight, a sword fight. Mark gets into a fencing fight with the Marquis de Sade. Nowhere in this film does it explain that Mark is good at fencing. There should have been a scene in the beginning with Mark and his mother where his mother was saying, oh, don't forget, you got fencing practice later. And he's like, oh, fine, Mom, okay. And he gets his bag, which has his sword and everything, and goes off to school. They should have had something like that because for some weird reason, Mark is able to hold his own against fighting with the Marquis de Sade with a sword. I don't know, somehow he knows how to fence. It's not that easy. But in the end, Marquis de Sade overpowers Mark. But at the last minute, Sarah kills the Marquis de Sade. So that's the second time that Mark was saved by another character in the movie in this giant battle, right? Then, the owner of the Waxwork, the villain in the movie, is standing there and is going to kill Mark. But Patrick Macnee comes to the rescue and shoots the owner of the Waxwork, who ends up dying and falling into the giant container of boiling wax. And then a werewolf shows up behind Patrick Macnee and rips his head off. I just want to point something out here. We have a main character, somehow can fence. It's never explained how he can fence. He does not kill any important character in the movie. In fact, each of the 3 times he encounters an important character in this giant final battle, he doesn't kill them. In fact, he almost dies from them. He almost dies from China, he almost dies from Marquis de Sade, and he almost dies from the owner of the Waxwork. That, like, I don't know, this guy, I don't know, it's just pure luck. He's like super lucky. But, I guess Mark did things. He figured out, like, what was going on. No, he somewhat figured out what was going on. He figured out, let me go talk to my godfather, who will then explain to me what's going on. But I guess in the end, Mark is integral in burning down the Waxwork. It's just kind of funny that the main character is, I guess, the hero. He's kind of just the one that survives in the end. That's it. All the other characters kill the bad guys in the movie, and he just kind of survives and like, okay, let me put gasoline around and burn this thing down. At the end, I'm the hero. I don't know, it's kind of interesting in this movie is that the hero is just kind of the dude that was just there and was just like, okay, I'm alive. Let's burn this down. So that's the film Waxwork. It's fun. It's not what you expect in like a 80s horror movie. It's actually, I think, better than what you would expect from an 80s horror movie. You know, it's got some fun creature effects, some really good sets. You know, the werewolf world is cool. The vampire world is really cool. The set for the vampire world is really good with in the castle and stuff. I feel like the sets there were really neat. The mummy world is just one scene, but it's fun. It's silly, and you know the zombie one's actually kind of fun too. The zombie one is a delightful little surprise in the movie. Honestly, like a throwback to Night of the Living Dead, where it's black and white and it's super fun. So if you're a fan of horror movies, I think you'll like this movie. It does some fun stuff. It mashes a lot of horror movie monsters together, and it does it like at least 25 years before the movie Cabin in the Woods did. Remember Cabin in the Woods, where it has all the different monsters, and there's also like a blood ritual that's supposed to be going on in there too. But this movie did it way before it, back in 1988, and I think it's way smarter than it needed to be. I think it's more fun than it needed to be. Honestly, I think this movie respects the horror fan. It gives you a little bit. It doesn't really insult you. It's like, okay, you want to see some fun creature designs? Here you go. You want to see a fun set? Here you go. The only thing I will say is the fight choreography in this movie is not good. But don't let that deter you. Everything else with this movie is great. The movie is funny, it's a nice little horror film, and it's honestly a smarter movie than it needed to be. And I think it's just a nice little addition if you're kind of in the mood to watch a 80s horror movie one night. I'd say check it out. It's playing on a few streaming services. Just go on it and just give it a watch. Just go in and understand that you're not going to see something like Nightmare on Elm Street or like any of the Halloween movies from the 80s or like Friday the 13th or something like that. You're just going to see this fun little horror comedy and have a good time watching it. So that is why I recommend that you watch Waxwork. Bye.